next, I'm going to turn this over to Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. As most of you probably know, she's been dealing with a health crisis and is now at least out of the hospital. So we're really glad to see that, looking refreshed. I think as somebody who has had to spend some time on a couch and in a bed, recovering from surgery and such, it chafes you when you've been very busy and you're forced to just sit the heck down and take a break. But we are so glad that you are doing better, Debbie, and thank you for joining us today. And Godspeed on your return to complete health.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for being such a wonderful chair and keeping us all together and being a friend. And Kathleen, thank you for your organization on this. And you know what? It's just really good to see everybody. I'm not going to tell you that the last 2 weeks have been fun. And I got a couple more weeks of, Chris knows this better than anybody. This kind of stuff isn't fun. I had no symptoms. I had no idea I was doing this to myself. So I really am using this to tell people. Everybody knows I'm anti-drugs, I'm anti-drinking, even though I think it's okay if others, but over-the-counter drugs can have the same kind of damage. I mean, quite frankly, maybe more serious damage. Motrin really caused this perforated ulcer and a stomach inflammation. And I was talking to the doctor again this morning. It's going to be a couple more weeks. So I'm listening. So God, the one thing that's come out of COVID is we all know how to handle work virtually. And I'm doing enough to not drive everybody, not to give other people ulcers, but I am trying to behave, and everybody's friendship and support has meant a lot. So I just want to say thank you for that. Today, we're all going to be talking about global warming and the different things that are happening. Specifically, people asked me to talk about the Thrive Act, and I'm going to talk about that a little, but I really want to talk about where we're at, why the infrastructure bill and we've got 2 bills coming up, and how critical they are to the discussion of all of this. So we're switching from relief to recovery. We're still getting this week. I've been pushing since December. I might have been. Rashida doesn't like it when I call myself a bitch, but I can be one, and I admit it. Have been pushing HHS very hard to get regs out on drinking water relief aid. That was one of the programs that still came out from the relief package, but we really are beginning to now, we still need to make sure restaurants are getting their help. People who need help are getting help. But now we're moving to recovery and jobs. And it was good to see that the jobs report yesterday was stronger than last month. All of us need to be prepared to talk to people about, the Republicans are trying to say that we shouldn't have given people unemployment aid. We shouldn't have given them the extra payment. People don't want to work. Well, that's a bunch of crap. It's a bunch of bullshit. And we need to be really prepared to push back on that. One of the biggest problems that we have is caregiving, and that, more than 3 million women have been forced out of the workforce because of caregiving issues, both for children and, quite frankly, elder care, other family care, disability. And we need to address that too. And Michigan was in the midst of a surge that was a very serious surge for a couple of months, and people were afraid to go back to work. And I've met with a lot of the frontline workers, and I want to make sure, and we can send you all, that you're prepared to have that discussion, because I've been having that discussion with a lot of people. But we're now talking about infrastructure, and I'll go into the details of that, but let me talk about Thrive for a minute, since you all want me to talk about that. I told everybody last year, I made a commitment that I'm very concerned when labor and the environmentalists aren't on the same page, which was a problem last year. And there's still, I want to say this, even as I talk about what we're doing with Thrive, that 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, I said to you all, Donald Trump could win. And I said he could win because he was talking about trade issues. and workers were really afraid about their jobs. And if you are listening and you're talking to a lot of the workers, they are afraid for their jobs. Here are some realities. The reality is we move to, and we are going to go to electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are the vehicle of the future. But as you move from the internal combustion engine to the battery, there will be fewer jobs, which is why it's critical that we produce those batteries here in the United States of America and are creating good, strong union jobs to build those vehicles. And I'll answer any questions you want and can go into as deep as you want. And I'll go to EVs in a minute. Let me talk about the Thrive Act and then. But what we're doing with the Thrive Act is to be very intentional and intersectionals that make the economy work for everyone. So what we're trying to do in Thrive, and we brought everybody together. We have unions, we had the environmentalists, a lot of other advocacy groups so we are advancing good paying union jobs, racial equity, and climate action. And so it brings forward a transformative approach to rebuilding our economy. And with the collaboration of our colleagues, our advocates, and activists, we're working together to ensure that we are recovering with a focus on justice and healing. So the Thrive Act is an economic recovery and infrastructure package that would put 15 million people to work in good union family sustaining jobs. I'm going to make another practical point. I'm doing some of this just off the top of my head, but this is all I've done. I made you this promise I was going to do this. It's all I've done, and I'm still doing it while I'm behaving and not moving. And that is, union workers don't like the word green jobs. A lot of people don't like, because they hear the word green jobs and they think my job's going away and it's either not going to be replaced or I'm going to be paid less. We need to lose the buzzwords and really just talk everyday language that everyday workers understand. And just as an aside, they hear the word retraining and that says to them, my job's going away and there's not going to be another one, or I'm going to get paid less. And that's not what we're about. We are trying to, the Thrive Act is an economic recovery and infrastructure package that is going to guarantee that it's jobs. So we would invest $1 trillion per year to renew our infrastructure and invest in manufacturing in this country, in other sectors. During the pandemic, we saw it with PPE that we didn't have enough for our frontline workers, still don't have enough for our frontline workers. It's being made in China and at lower quality. We should be building those right now. And when you just look at the broader picture, look what's happened to the auto industry, because we didn't have enough semiconductors. We've got too many plants shuttered. We need to be building those semiconductors here in the United States. So at the same time, while we're creating those jobs, we would be cutting pollution, advancing racial justice, and ending the unemployment crisis. It's a lot of money, but you know what? We're going to be spending that money and we need to be intentional about it. And with a focus on helping the American people get back on their feet. So the legislation would upgrade our infrastructure for clean water, affordable public transit, and a reliable electric grid. It would expand access to wind and solar power, electric vehicles, healthy buildings. It would protect our rural and urban spaces, wetlands, prairies, forests, and support family farmers who are embracing regenerative agriculture. That creates 4 million jobs just in and of itself. And we'd invest in public institutions and care for children and the elderly, essential work that's underpaid and largely performed by women of color. So I actually have several pieces of what's happening in Washington right now that I'm taking the lead on. One of them is electric vehicles. And I told everybody 2 years ago, I've been at the table with the unions, UAW, IBEW, and I'm the president of every single major environmental group that's been at the table. It's not been, so Gene Karpinski, Fred Krupp from Gene's LCB, Fred's Environmental Defense Fund, the head of the NRDC, Sierra Club, Union of Concerned Scientists. I mean, every one of those groups is at this table. And we are sitting down. John Podesta agreed to chair the work group. We meet regularly and we're trying to find that common ground. And when Joe Biden came to Michigan 2 weeks ago, look, I'm the one that invited him because that was the right message. People don't believe electric vehicles are real. When you see the F-150, the most popular vehicle in America, the truck, electric, and Joe Biden loved driving. If you could see the gleam in his eye, it was actually great to see him smile. But that's where we've got to go. We've got to convert, but we got to be intentional about protecting those jobs. So the day that he came, the environmentalists put out a letter that said we need to protect labor and put in all these things that we need to do. And when we talk about electric vehicles, I'm going to tell you there are 3 buckets. One is the vehicle needs to be affordable. Tesla is the luxury vehicle. It's not real. And for me, it's not built by union workers either. And Debbie Stabenow and Dan Kildee and Ways and Means are working on tax credits, et cetera, to make that more affordable. Second bucket is a battery that people trust, that people have confidence will have the range. And so we're investing in R&D and we need to build it here. And I am damn committed to making sure it gets built here. The night before I had this ulcer attack, I was having dinner with the CEO of the joint venture Ford is going to do. And I told him those, I mean, so did actually Ford. We want those to be union jobs. People aren't sure what LG is going to do. I've been very blunt with Mary Barra. You know, that Debbie, you know, and love sometimes. We're going to create union jobs. And then the third is we've got to build out the infrastructure, which involves not only putting in the outlets and our brothers and sisters in the IBEW, they're going to have to, we've got to build out that infrastructure so people know where they can charge. We're going to have to make it safe for it to happen at home. But we also have to upgrade our power grid by 50%. So I'm working on all of that. This is, I'm breathing and drinking this right now, which I think the doctor may even think is healthy. But I'll tell you the other thing that I'm taking the lead on, and I'm very, very committed to too. So there are 2 bills. There's the American Jobs Bill, which is where the roads and bridges, expanding broadband to both urban areas and the rural areas. So everybody in America's got access to them doing schools. But that bill also has, and Joe Biden talked about this in his campaign, has money for the senior care, the elder care, putting money into HCBS so that we will pay people a decent wage and there will be people there to help people care the way that, you know, I understand it better than most because I lived it with John for 4 years and I have been taking the lead on that as well. The next Schumer wants to get that introduced in the next couple of weeks. It's accelerating things, but I don't want you to think that because I can't move around, I am not working this. So that's a big piece of it. Then you also have the CARES bill, the family bill, which will have child care in it and a number of other things. And these next, the House has been out. Somebody said to me, only Debbie Dingell would get sick. Her body's so attuned that she would be out the 3 weeks. We're at home working. We come back. Nancy wanted to have some of this done by July 4th, but we will not go home in August until some of this is really resolved and done. Joe Biden's continuing his bipartisan discussions at some point, and I do believe it's going to be sooner than later now. We're going to have to fish or cut bait. But we are now entering the critical times for all of these discussions. So I think that gives you a big up there. I'm living, eating, breathing this in a lot of detail and happy to answer any questions, Chris.
Are there any questions? We have a little bit of time here. Looks like we have a couple of questions. Teresa Reed's got a hand up. Do they have to be promoted to panelists to speak, Satish or Kathleen?
Yes, and I am going to do that right now. Teresa, you should be able to speak and turn on your.
Make sure you unmute. There we go. Teresa, you are muted.
Okay, am I good?
There you go. Yep.
All right, cool. Debbie, welcome back. I'm glad you're well. Thank you so much for the incredible amount of work you do. We just love you and depend on you so much. I'm writing something up for the newsletter about what you've just been saying, and I need some clarity about the relationships between these three bills. We've got the Thrive Act, the American Jobs Plan, and the CARES bill. Can you help me understand how those are different or what their relationship to each other is?
Well, the Thrive bill is a bill that I've introduced.
Okay.
What I would say to you all is, you know, people with weak stomachs shouldn't watch sausage or laws being made. And the Senate and House are kind of, so the president has introduced those two bills. He's got two different packages that, and we can get you the summaries of what those bills are. Here's where we're entering into the nitty gritty now, these next few weeks. What is going to happen and how's it going to happen? On the House side, the committees, the committee chairs are beginning the work on different pieces of it. So I have a number of bills that have been, we've got two bills that have combined bills that all of us have done in committee. The Forward Act is the one that's in our committee and we've had hearings. But what Nancy is going to do in the House side is ultimately we're going to have different packages. I actually, the EVs and the HCBS stuff are the two that I actually have the lead on. But they'll come out of committee in different, the care, we have to figure that out. Actually, I was on the phone last night with Nancy's office and the committee trying to figure out what next steps are. It can get, this is where it gets, you know, people with weak stomachs. We had planned on doing that later. Nancy didn't want to move as fast. I've been working with Bob Casey on this. We've had a work group, all the groups, and people have said the groups have never worked together better. You know, it's SEIU, it's the age groups, it's a disability group, but Schumer decided he wanted it introduced. Nancy, well, everybody kind of went into flipping out last night. And Nancy is like, we're going to go, I mean, we can't totally sit on the sidelines, but you're going to see the House and Senate doing different things. And the Senate has a bill that Schumer tried to get passed before Memorial Day that they just couldn't get the votes for. I never, ever speak, predict, or do anything about what the Senate will do or not do. In the House side, we will move like the electric vehicle, the global climate. We will be moving that, probably having markups in committee in probably before the 4th of July on some of this. We'll have to see where the care piece of this goes, but different people have different pieces. They've been rolled into larger bills, and these next couple of weeks are going to be absolutely critical on where some of this is going to go. So while we have bills, they're getting rolled into other bills. And in the meantime, you've seen President Biden negotiating at the White House. He's already come down on what he's going to do on taxes. I think people are concerned about the Republican negotiations, but giving him his space. But there are people like me who feel like now is not the time for baby steps. There's some things that we have to do. I think, to be perfectly frank, the world, if I can come to agreement between the unions and the environmentalists, that everybody else will be happier than hell that they didn't have to deal with it. If I'm able to bring this all together, and I don't know if I can, but I'm going to do my damnedest to do it. And these next few weeks are going to be, they're hard to write about. Look at the newspapers are having a hard time writing about it because we're in these negotiating times.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. So I'm going to just focus on the Thrive bill because that's so important.
Yeah. And my staff can give you, you know, what we're doing with the Thrive bill. And,
great.
You know, and one of the big issues as you all are watching this is, can we reach bipartisan agreement, or do we have to use the same process that we used on the recovery bill again, where they can't, the Senate can't stop it with a filibuster. So.
All right, thanks so much.